everyone, and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. My name is Austin and I am a beauty and style content creator based in New York City. Today's video is a long time coming. I see this question in Facebook groups every day. I get texts and DMs about this all the time, and I'm finally sitting down to address what you should charge for sponsored posts as an influencer. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some general pricing advice that I see floating around the internet and whether or not I think you should follow it. And then I'm going to be going into the 8 factors that can contribute to how much you should charge for a sponsored post. If you are a fashion or beauty content creator, be sure to subscribe to my channel. I put out new videos every Sunday with tips for beauty and style content creators as well as beauty product reviews. And give this video a like down below if you are excited to learn more about what goes into calculating a rate for a sponsored post. And don't forget to leave any questions you have in the comments down below and I will be sure to get back to you. So I want to start off with a statistic that I've heard a lot, which is that you should be charging $100 for every 10,000 followers that you have for a post. This is one of those baseline statistics that I feel like floats around the industry to just give people something to go off of, but what I think is forgotten in this is that sometimes it's just taken so literally and that there are many factors that can impact the cost of a sponsored post for an influencer. You may hear that statistic and think, holy crap, $100 for just posting on Instagram and I have 10,000 followers, that sounds great. And you might hear that statistic and think, that sounds like BS. To give you guys a little insight on me and background if you're new here, I have been a digital content creator for 8 years and I have done multiple 4-figure brand deals across my social media platforms with fashion and beauty brands. I've also written about this topic a couple of times for the Huffington Post, and I've interviewed different types of influencers in mainly the fashion and beauty spaces about how much they charge for sponsored content. So I will leave some of my articles down below in case you'd like to go give them a read and learn a little bit more about that. I even created this video on my channel earlier this year about how I made 5 figures blogging in 2019, and a lot of that comes from sponsored content, so be sure to bookmark that one, save it to your watch later playlist so you can check it out after you finish this video. Now, when I say that I have landed multiple 4-figure brand deals, that does not come without a ton of hard work and a ton of campaigns that I was probably underpaid for starting out just because I wanted to build up the experience. Plus, even though I am a micro influencer on Instagram, I have about 11,000 followers. On TikTok, I'm kind of just below 10K. Over here on YouTube, there are 3,500 of you. And I think that people are often surprised to hear that I can get paid that much to create a video or post a TikTok or do these different things. And so I really want to get into some of the factors that I use to my advantage when I am negotiating with brands to really increase the price and make sure that I am getting paid fairly for the work that I'm doing. So let's now get into the 8 different things that can increase the price of a sponsored post. And if you watch all the way till the end of this video, I will also reveal this little mindset shift that I made that makes me feel so much more confident when I am negotiating deals with brands. And I also want to say that these things factor in whether you have pitched the brand or the brand has reached out to you. And if you're new to pitching brands, I'm also going to link a blog post down below about the biggest pitching mistakes I see bloggers making. So don't forget to go give that a read before you send your next brand pitch email. The first thing I want to talk about is engagement, and I am probably going to use Instagram as the main platform example for all of these different factors, but please know that these can transfer to different social media platforms as well. So engagement on Instagram is basically all of the comments, likes, and saves that you have on a post divided by your follower count times 100 to get your engagement percentage. I can do math. Now, what makes a good engagement percentage? It really varies depending on how big your audience is. So everyone kind of looks at this in different ways, but I'm going to put a chart on the screen that I found from a website called Hype Auditor, which basically explains the average engagement rate per the number of followers that you have. So me, for example, I fall in the 5 to 20K following range on Instagram, so I should expect to have an average engagement rate of 2.43% according to this chart. And keep in mind that these things can shift and change depending on what's going on in the industry, but sometimes it is helpful to look this up to have a baseline to go off of. So then if I actually have, maybe a 3 or 4% engagement rate, then that actually is above average, and that's something I might be able to use as leverage when talking to a brand, because I can say that compared to what the typical engagement rate is in my following size, that I am doing a little bit better than that, and therefore I have a more engaged audience who might be more likely to purchase the product I'm talking about or be interested in the service that I'm mentioning for the brand that I'm working with. The next thing I want to talk about is usage rights, and this is something that can drive up the price of any kind of sponsored post. Let me explain why usage rights can drive up a post. If you are doing a brand campaign with a fashion brand and they agree to pay you for 1 Instagram post and 3 Instagram stories on your channel, and they agree to meet your rate, that's great. Now they're also asking if they can have access to the rights to that content to use in their own paid marketing materials. So that could mean paid social posts, it could mean email marketing, it could mean on the brand's website to help sell a product, or it could even potentially mean in commercials, on billboards, it could go on and on. I would say that typically now most of these rights are digital first, and that the rights are pretty much worldwide. That's kind of standard now, just because if you are putting something on the internet, you want it to be visible in pretty much all markets that are online. The other thing to keep in mind about usage rights is that they are often calculated based on the amount of time that the brand will have rights to that content for. And this is something a lot of brands try to sneak into contracts. I actually have a whole video about blogging contract terms to watch out for, so I will leave a link to it down below. But I think one thing that influencers don't always catch is that sometimes brands will sneak in a clause about usage rights and will try to retain rights to your content in perpetuity to use in their different marketing materials. I would say do whatever it takes to avoid agreeing to doing something with a brand in perpetuity. No matter how much you love the brand, you just never know what the future will hold for them or what information may come to light about them, and I just feel like you are protecting yourself by doing that. What I typically like to do is offer the brand different usage rates for certain periods of time. So I will often come back to the brand and say, I see that you asked for usage rates here. Here are my rates for 3, 6, and 12 months of usage, and I rarely go past the 12 months timeline. If a brand is profiting off of your image and likeness, I think you deserve to be compensated for that. This is becoming much more standard in the industry, and fewer brands are going to be able to get away with trying to sneak them into contracts without you being compensated. So make sure that you're on the lookout for that and definitely charge more for it. The third thing is exclusivity, and exclusivity and usage rights are often kind of mentioned together. Exclusivity basically just means that you won't post about a brand's direct competitors for X amount of time. I would say that I would actually expect about 48 hours of exclusivity to be in all brand deal contracts, because there is nothing more insulting to a brand than promoting, I don't know, a moisturizer for a brand and saying that it's your favorite, and then 24 hours later on your Instagram stories using a totally different moisturizer and saying that that's your favorite. That's kind of just really rude to do to the brand, and it also doesn't make your audience trust you. I would say that any exclusivity that goes beyond a week or 2 weeks is where you would want to start to charge for it, and again, use your own judgment based on what you are comfortable with. The reason you want to charge for exclusivity is because now you have to think about, if you are being so associated with that brand and you agree not to work with any of their competitors, what money you might be missing out on if you choose to agree to the exclusivity. If you are a beauty blogger and a brand wants you to not talk about any other color cosmetic brands for a month, that seems like it's just not going to work for you, because if you are a blogger who is constantly trying new palettes and new things and new releases, that's a pretty big missed opportunity. And if you really love the brand, you can charge them a really high amount to have exclusivity for that long, but my guess is that the brand would not want to pay for that and would negotiate down to a shorter time frame of exclusivity if that's what they really want. The fourth thing that can impact the price of a brand campaign is the content type. And by that I mean, is it a single photo feed post? Is it an Instagram story? Is it a YouTube video? In general, you can charge more for video content than for photo content. In general, video requires a lot more effort than photography. There's a lot that goes into it with lighting, sound, getting the movement right, potentially adding text overlays to your video, editing it down to the right size for Instagram stories or for YouTube, or all of those different elements. I think I can say that I always charge more for video content. I can't think of a single instance in which I asked for more for an Instagram feed post than I did for a YouTube video. And don't just think about the time that it takes you to create that content, but think about what type of engagement you have in the place that they're asking for the content. So if you have an amazing response rate on your Instagram stories, even if it takes you 15 seconds to film them, if you know that the brand is going to get lots of great DMs asking questions about their product, or a ton of engagement through swipe ups or through replies or anything along those lines, definitely charge more for that engagement on your Instagram stories. What's the saying? It's like, if it took me 10 years to learn how to do the job in 15 minutes, you're paying me for the 10 years, not the 15 minutes. And this isn't to say to just be obnoxious and charge brands ridiculous amounts of money for no reason, but I think you can be reasonable and use these pieces of data to back up your price and explain to a brand exactly why you're charging what you're charging based on all of these variables. The fifth thing that can affect the price of a sponsored post is the total scope of work. So what exactly needs to be done for this campaign? I have done a couple of campaigns that have just been Instagram stories, right? So they just wanted 3 Instagram stories. That was the end of it. I've also done campaigns where I have had multiple touch points. So I've had a blog post and an Instagram post and a TikTok video and a YouTube shout out and all of that kind of stuff too. Now, while your immediate thought about the scope of work would be to kind of jack up the price because you're doing a lot more stuff, what I would actually recommend is calculating, what all of those things would be individually for you, but then compiling them all together and giving the brand a little bit of a discount. The reason I suggest this is because then it shows that you really value their partnership, and it shows that if they are trying to do multiple touch points, that they can reach a ton of your audience and that you're giving them a little bit of a kickback for it. I think this is a tactic that you should employ if this is a brand that you want to make a long-term partner, because I think brands really do appreciate when you give them a little bit more for their money. So just one thought on scope of work from me personally, but again, if you want to charge a ton of money for doing all of that stuff, then be my guest. Number 6 is talking about sensitive topics. And you might be surprised that this is something you can charge extra for, but I think that if you are approaching a sensitive topic to your audience, that requires a lot more time on your end, a lot more attention to detail, a lot more thinking about what kind of copy you want to put out there if it's an Instagram feed post, and thinking about how your audience may react to it. I think that even putting up a post about something like CBD could be a sensitive topic, just because there's a lot of misinformation and misunderstanding about CBD and what it is. I think that anything about politics is a sensitive topic. Hello 2020. Please also remember to vote this year, everyone. And I think that if you know that your audience is going to have mixed reactions to it, that is definitely something that you can factor into your pricing. Number 7 is also your expertise, and this is something that I really lean on a lot when I am pitching brands, because I do reference that I am a former magazine editor, and I explain to them that when I am creating content for them, I approach it just like I'm creating a page of a magazine. So I have to do location scouting. I think about what photographer friend of mine I want to hire based on the style. I think about if I need to get any props to go along with the shoot and what is going to go into the editing process. So the way that I approach it is very tactical and editorial in that sense, and I sell brands on that process and that experience so that they know that they're going to get a high quality result from me. This can also apply based on your own specific niche. So if you are an expert in clean skincare, or if you are an expert in plus size fashion and a brand is looking to cast influencers based on the fact that they constantly create content on those specific topics and talk about it, I, in my eyes, see that as something that you can charge more for. And the 8th thing I want to talk about is the timeline of the project. So if the timeline of the project is a really quick turnaround, I would recommend charging what we call a rush fee, which is basically an additional fee to ask the brand for in order to get the content completed by the date that they need it. I actually recently negotiated a campaign where I asked for a rush fee because the turnaround time was within a week of the brand reaching out to me. And as someone who works a full-time job and creates content on nights and weekends, that's something that I would have to factor in and potentially rearrange my schedule for to be able to accommodate the brand's timeline. So I did go back and ask if I could add on a rush fee to the rate that she had suggested to me, and she agreed to it because it was such a last-minute project. it's up to you what basically determines how much of a rush there is on this. I would say for me, anything within a week is something I might charge a rush fee for, but maybe for you, if you are a mom or if you work a job with crazy hours or something like that, and this is your part-time thing on the side, maybe even within 2 weeks is a really tight amount of notice for you, and you are within your rights to ask for an additional compensation for that. And the last thing I'll share before I wrap up this video is this little mindset shift that I made when I am negotiating my rates with brands. I think that especially as women, sometimes it's a little hard to push back and negotiate, but one thing that I've come to realize is that if a brand has approached me about a campaign, they have already had to search through so many influencers to identify people who they're interested in working with, and odds are that they really want to make it work with the people who they have reached out to already. Because when I think about how much more time it would take to find someone like me with my audience size, with my engagement rate, potentially with my location being in New York, there may not be as many people out there who kind of fit the bill of what they're looking for. And so they are probably really trying to make it work with you if they have reached out to you. This has given me a lot more confidence to kind of push back and say what I'm worth. You know, I've also been doing this for 8 years now. And even though I am a micro influencer in terms of my following size, I'm a professional in terms of the content that I create. And I think any brand that really wants to be a good partner will find a way to make it work so that you can both sign an agreement that you feel confident in. So just a little thing to keep in mind. I hope that gives some of you some additional confidence as you are negotiating these brand deals, often typically over email, which is not an easy thing to do. All right, I know that was a lot, you guys, so if you have any questions for me, please leave them down below. I will do my best to answer everyone. Like I said, don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you like tips for beauty and fashion content creators. I'm here every Sunday. Give this video a like down below if it helped you out or you learned something new. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!